For the first time since 2014, Samsung has officially revealed two new Galaxy Notes, the Note 10 and the Note 10 Plus. But before we go any further, I think we need to talk about these names. They make it sound like we're getting a Galaxy Note and a bigger Galaxy Note, but that doesn't actually feel right to me. The way I see it, we're getting a Galaxy Note and another smaller Galaxy Note. And for Samsung, going small here is kind of a big deal. All right, I realize I'm being a bit dramatic, so here's what I'm talking about. The bigger of these two phones, the $1,100 Galaxy Note 10 Plus, is your typical Samsung powerhouse. There is a Snapdragon 855 chipset inside with either 8 or 12 gigs of RAM, a whopper of a 4,300 milliamp hour battery, and up to 512 gigs of storage. You can expand further with a micro SD card, all of which sits behind a gorgeous 6.8-inch dynamic AMOLED screen. Samsung considers its Note fans to be power users, so it's really not a surprise that the Note 10 is as spec'd out as it is. And I know what some of you are thinking already. A 6.8-inch screen sounds massive, but because Samsung all but eliminated the bezels around the display, it's actually easier to hold than last year's Note 9. And despite being very slightly taller and very slightly wider, the Note 10 Plus is actually lighter than the Note 9 as well. If you're looking for a properly big sequel to last year's S Pen powerhouse, this is it. The standard Note 10 is a different story. Apparently, Samsung was tired of people walking into phone stores and falling in love with what the Galaxy Note could do, but buying a different phone because the Note was just too big. That's why the Note 10 exists. Like the Galaxy S10 before it, it's very nearly as good as its big brother, but its design is so much more compact, so more people can benefit from the Note experience. That means we are working with a smaller 6.3-inch AMOLED screen, a 3,500 milliamp hour battery, and specs that have also been slightly dialed down. Unless you live in Korea and you splurge on a 5G model, you're working with 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage with no expandable memory at all. I should also point out that for the first time since 2014, Samsung is shipping a version of the Galaxy Note without a Quad HD or equivalent screen. The Note 10 only runs at Full HD, and all of this taken together is not an insignificant number of compromises, especially when you consider the Note 10 is not that much cheaper than the Plus. Its starting price is $950. So, are these trade-offs worth it? Well, I'll put it this way. They'd be more worth it if the phone cost $100 less, but this smaller design feels so good that I wouldn't be surprised at all if the compact Note outsells the big one. Then again, I'm the kind of person who really liked the tiny Galaxy S10e, but even if I put that bias aside, the small Note 10 design feels honestly really kind of special. Well done, Samsung. No matter which version of the Note appeals to you though, you're largely getting the same experience. Both have been designed and built really well, this time with a focus on symmetry. You can see that in the sort of center-mounted cutout in the screen for that front-facing camera. Speaking of cutting, Samsung also trimmed a few extra bits in the Note 10 series. Do you remember the Bigsby button, that one that you probably mashed all the time by accident? It is gone. If you really, for some reason, want to talk to Bigsby, you can either use voice commands or set the phone up so that a double click of the power button launches it. For better or worse, the headphone jack is also gone. Also, Samsung can make these phones thinner and fit some big batteries inside. Whether or not that's a bad thing is kind of personal preference, so I'll just let you all debate about that in the comments. Of course, a Galaxy Note wouldn't be a Galaxy Note without the S Pen. Last year, Samsung turned the stylus into a Bluetooth remote. This year, it's kind of a Bluetooth magic wand. All of those leaks were spot on. If you hold the S Pen's button in the air and wave the thing around, you can perform specific actions like switching between the front and rear cameras and even zooming in on your subject. We tried a few of these, and some of them were much better than others. Flicking up and down to jump between the cameras worked pretty well, but to zoom, you have to draw a C in the air and let go of the S Pen button once you've zoomed in enough. The problem is getting that timing down is actually really tricky, to the point where I could see some people getting really frustrated and never really trying this again. I should also say that the first few times I tried this gesture, the Note didn't seem to realize what I was doing at all, so it took a 50 photo burst instead. For now, Air Actions only work with first-party apps, but Samsung has made a software development kit available to companies who might want to give their apps a little Wingardium Leviosa flair. Honestly though, I can't imagine too many people will actually bother with this gimmick, and that's perfectly fine by me. Speaking of gimmicks, you can also use the S Pen to draw what Samsung calls AR doodles, which are exactly what they sound like. If you draw a cactus on your desk, it'll stay there even as you use the Note's camera to look around the room. And yes, you can use it to draw weird stuff on other people, which will persist even as they move around. It's a neat show of Samsung's AR talent, but also kinda dumb. But you know, it's cute dumb, not like AR emoji, which were horrifying dumb. Thankfully, a few other S Pen tricks worked a lot better. From the moment you start writing on the Note with the S Pen, the phone interprets your words and indexes them so you can search for specific things. With the help of that handy neural processing unit as part of the 855, you can also transcribe your handwritten notes to text with decent and sometimes surprisingly good accuracy, but I wouldn't rely on it heavily. You can also export them as Word docs and PDFs. Working in these file formats gets a little easier when you're using a bigger screen, so Samsung's updates to DeX will really seem helpful to some people. Unlike before, when you had to connect the phone directly to a monitor, you can now plug it directly into a Windows or a Mac machine and run the desktop DeX interface right there. It's a pretty cool idea in theory, but it's one that doesn't always seem that helpful since it kind of requires you to have an actual computer to be right there in front of you anyway. Why not just work on that? At the very least, it does make dragging and dropping files from your phone to your computer pretty easy, and I could see people who work in public spaces on public computers being able to take their stuff, work on DeX, and take it all with them when they go. There are some things that Samsung hardly changed at all, like the triple camera system around the back. It's basically very similar to what we saw in the S10 and the S10 Plus. There's a wide, ultra-wide, and telephoto camera in both versions of the Note 10. They all shoot at the same resolution as before. The only difference we really noticed was that the 12-megapixel telephoto camera has a slightly wider aperture. That should help it at least a little bit in low light, but in the few sample shots we did take, we didn't really notice much of a difference. Samsung's cameras did get a bit of a boost when it comes to video though. A live focus mode makes it really easy to shoot bokeh-filled video of people just kind of dancing around in front of you, and a new feature called Zoom In Microphone uses multiple mics in the device to target the audio coming from your subject and sort of minimize everything else. And for all you creators out there, Samsung cooked up an improved video editing app so you can take all of that live focus video and zoomed in audio and whip up proper productions with the help of the S Pen. We have tried a lot of the S10's new features, and we liked most of them. There are some that we haven't gotten to test yet, like one that allows you to install some software on your PC and basically stream any game you have installed onto your Note. It sounds a little too good to be true, but we'll just have to wait and see what's up there. And then there's 5G. In the US, and for a little while anyway, Samsung will sell a 5G-friendly version of the Note 10 Plus exclusively through Verizon, which is a great opportunity for me to re-mention that Verizon is our parent company, but we here at Engadget do not care what carrier you use as long as you're happy with it. Anyway, the rest of the carriers will start to sell their own 5G models as soon as Verizon's annoying exclusivity deal is over, but for now, it seems like 5G is going to be exclusive to that bigger Galaxy Note. And this is interesting. It's not because Samsung thinks squeezing 5G into a smaller phone is a bad idea or that it might do a number on those smaller batteries. In certain regions, the smaller Note 10 will be available with 5G support. The device already exists. Samsung just didn't want to sell it here. For now, anyway. After spending some time with both of these phones, I'm honestly a little torn. I can't help but be drawn to the absurd power and the big screen of the Note 10, and I know I probably sound repetitive, but the smaller Note 10's design feels so good. Every time I've reviewed a Note before, I'd say generally the same thing at some point. If you want a fantastic big phone, you probably won't do much better than a Galaxy Note. This year, with a smaller model that's just about but not quite as powerful but still very good, it's starting to finally feel like there's a Galaxy Note for everyone, or at least everyone who's okay with spending $1,000 on a phone.